Everybody paying attention? On the hand open, we're recording.
Hey, this is Tyler with TJX Survival and Survival Dispatch. I'm here with these guys.
There.
I'm Jason.
Alejandro Ortega.
El Guapo. And we're going to talk to you just a little bit about who they are, where they learned their skill set, and how you can learn that as well. So stick with me.
So, my name is Bear with BearIndependent.com, YouTube, all the things. And I grew up poor, man. And it was one of those things I didn't know that we were poor because we had everything we needed until I kind of went out in the world and everything was like shiny and glitzy. But I grew up in a household where we had a bunch of kids, we had animal livestock, we had land. I hunted for food growing up. We had a 2-acre garden, and this was just the way we did stuff. Animal husbandry it's just what we did. We baled hay in the summer, and you help your neighbors. I remember one time there was a really rough winter, and our neighbors next door weren't doing so hot. And my mom walked into the pantry back when they still had paper grocery sacks. Remember that? Mm-hmm. And she had an armload of paper grocery sacks, and she started pulling quart jars of stuff off the shelf in the pantry to stick in the bag. I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "They need help. We're gonna give them a month's worth of food." And I'm watching her grab these quarts of green beans off, thinking, I picked and cleaned and canned every one of those green beans. I said, and I'm like, "Mom, what are you doing?" And she said, "They need it more than we do." And so we gave them a month's worth of food. Next year, that fall and spring, they had a bumper crop, and they reciprocated in like kind, right? And so for me, it was just a way of life, not just eking out an existence off of the land, but looking back on it. I mean, dude, grass-fed beef, people pay an arm and a leg for that now. I grew up on, right? Fresh, organic, cruelty-free vegetables or whatever like that. That was just the way we did things. I had a couple of awesome grandparents as well, and I was also raised by a bunch of older men. I was always around older men, and I always made it my business to get up next to somebody who knew more than I did so that I could sponge off that expertise. Show up early, stay late, work hard, build that man's trust so that then he would deem me worthy to pour into me. And that's how I got here.
I feel like you explained half of my childhood right there. So I usually like to have the 3 questions. Who are you? How did you learn? Which you kind of just nailed. And how can other people learn this stuff? We'll come back to you so we can come back up.
For sure.
Who are you?
Who am I?
Who are you?
I'm
Who's
Jason.
that guy?
I am the Jason.
The Jason.
Yeah, there's a lot of Jasons floating around, but there's only one the Jason, and that's me.
Ego is not your amigo.
Ego's not my amigo. I'm just Jason. Sorry. Yeah. All right. What do you want to know? What's the first question?
Who are you?
Who am I?
How did you learn? And how can other people learn?
Okay. Let's see.
Who taught you?
Okay. I am father of 3 children, husband to a beautiful wife, who for some reason has stuck around for a lot of years. I live in North Georgia, far North Georgia, and I've got kind of a homestead going on. I would say what I've got going on, I've just got so many balls in the air, and I haven't focused too much on personal food production. Some, but I'd say more of what I've done is practice growing food and providing for the family. If you were to tell me that you've got to produce 100% of your family's needs right now, that would be a scary thing for me, because really all I've done is practiced it. That's I'm honest with it, and I know where I'm at. My professional background is in strength and conditioning. I worked in collegiate athletics for a long time, making people stronger, faster, and fitter. And then I transitioned into the military, where I was a contractor, and I was a human performance specialist for Naval Special Warfare. So I worked with Navy SEALs, and I helped them be more difficult to kill, essentially, by making them stronger, faster, fitter, healthier. Career longevity was the big thing that we focused on, because those guys get beat up bad, like big time. So that's what I've done. And then after that, I transitioned into more of a preparedness kind of mindset, moved to a place where that was possible, got out of Southern California, moved to a place where it was possible to be a little bit
Coronado.
Yeah, down there on the beach, which was fantastic, but not very sustainable in North Georgia, and have kind of developed a network of people that I could work with, close proximity to me, and just been preparing for kind of worst case scenario kind of stuff.
How can other people learn this? How can other people learn to do what you're doing?
I'm mostly self-taught. I don't know exactly why that is. I never really reached out a lot to other individuals for information. I don't know, pride, maybe ego, something like that might be why I never did that too much growing up. But I taught myself how to do almost all of the skills fairly relatively recently. I've reached out to individuals like this guy right here. He's taught me a ton. So like I was saying, I'm mostly self-taught. I've always been fascinated by kind of our ancient ancestors and how they kind of just eke their existence out of the natural environment. And I started rubbing two sticks together when I was maybe 12 years old, trying to harness those skills and make that happen, which is a very difficult thing to do by yourself without any outside instruction. But what that did for me was it gave me a lot of confidence, and now that I've done that, I own those skills because they're mine, and I put in the hours and the effort and stuff to develop that and learn how to not die, when things get bad. So how can people, what was the question?
How can they learn that?
How can they learn that? The biggest advice that I could offer anyone is to get out and actually do the skills. Get out outside and actually practice the things. Having the knowledge or the conceptual knowledge of something is important, but it's not even close to what getting your actual hands on something and doing it, building the thing, whatever it is. Carrying the rucksack from point A to point B is something that people always have the bug out bag, and they're all obsessed with what knife to put out in it, but they almost never put it on and carry it from point A to point B and suffer. So
Go do the things. That's what I tell people. Go do the things.
Yeah, exactly. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Cool.
Who are you?
I'm Alan Kay. I'm an avid camper. And I'm president of the Union County Goat Husbandry Association. And that's pretty much what I do. You have goats too, don't you? What type of goats? Are yours dairy goats? Or?
I gave my goats away because they're evil. Goats are evil. Goats are escape artists.
Look in their eyes.
No, they really are. But our goats would get out, they get outside the fence, and then just sit on the outside of the fence. They wouldn't even run away. They just look at you like what's up, bro?
What's up?
I did it.
That's awesome.
And so
They are hard to keep up.
my cameraman over here, my brother, has got one of our goats. We gave the rest away or killed them and ate them. But I've got Katahdin sheep in my front yard. I've got a pasture in my front yard. I've got zebu cattle on the side of my house, chickens, turkeys, the whole nine. But yeah, goat husbandry is not a thing that I do anymore because I don't feel like perpetuating that evil upon the soil.
That's awesome. We covered up this year in goats. They're all pregnant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I started out as a kid. People ask me, well, how'd you get into this? For me, I had this kind of an awareness. I remember as early as like 6, 7 years of age, just looking around, going, "This is not. None of this is right, and it can't last."
Mm-hmm.
Like I just had a knowing about that. Like none of this is going to work. It's too fragile.
Yep.
And so, how did we do it before we doing it the way we're doing it now? Which felt wrong to me just intuitively as a kid. So I started learning from all the old guys. Like one guy showed me how to sharpen a pocket knife. My dad showed me how to shoot. Other guys would show me things about trapping, and I just kept learning that and sought out people that had the skills that I wanted to learn. Like Mark Warren, Medicine Bow Survival, he was a big influence on me. Al Cornell. Have you heard, is he still around?
I'm not sure.
I haven't heard anything. But he was a big influence, like on my fire saw. He brought that. He taught a lot of people that. And I passed it on to a lot of people. He's probably one of the few that brought that skill really to America.
A lot of people don't realize how recent friction fire in the United States was, and the fact that about in the 60s, we were rediscovering. Clearly there was people still on the planet that were practicing it, but we didn't have the internet and Discovery Channel, whatever, to
Tiny
teach us.
pockets of individuals.
Yeah.
So there were,
to keep it alive.
there were some people who actually took, and I'm rabbit hole in here, but they took archaeological evidence and figured out what type of plant material it was and figured out how to do this. So it was literally resurrected skills.
George Michaud, one of those guys. I learned promontory peg from him. He was an influence on me.
He was one of the people that figured out what the promontory peg was.
Yep.
How to set
That was so cool that I learned it from him because he was part of that
Like you almost
process.
couldn't go more to the source if you tried.
Yeah. So I mean, we stand on the shoulders of giants, man. I didn't invent any of this stuff. Everything I learned, a lot of the stuff, small unit tactics and things that we learned, people died so that we
Figure
could
that out.
learn that lesson.
Poisonous plants.
Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty well rounded. I did all that, and now I'm kind of in the homestead mode because food production is really it. I mean, you can only store so much food.
Exactly right.
And no matter how much you store, you can sit down and do the math and be like, well, this is how long until we're going to die. Unless there's something else happens there. So food production, I think that's how we got through the Great Depression. Is we were still pretty much an agrarian society, and people had little chickens and they had little gardens, and it was enough to get through. They knew how to sew, they could repurpose things for clothing and shoes. But look at us now. Look at how.
And that was only one generation ago.
I know.
That's my grandma.
There's been a huge degradation in skill set in that
So
time.
one of the coolest things, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm gonna. I apologize. My wife's grandmother's 83 years old. She lives on property with us, and her parents raised her through the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
And grandma, and she's a strong woman. She's a smart woman. She's in perfect health. And I watch my wife's grandma, teaching my kids how to make biscuits, how to work in the garden. She throws nothing away, right? And she doesn't buy something unless it's durable and well made and the whole nine. And her mindset is just so different. She's 83 and she has the best garden in the community. It's right out front of the house, and she's just out there tending it every day. Runs some little chickens and the whole nine. And she was raised that way, and they made it, right? And so she's still carrying that on, and it's really cool to see it come down to my kids. And one of my most treasured possessions is I have a double bit axe that Daddy, her father, fed his family with. He cut trees, felled timber, and it's like this thing, just like the spirit that attends that thing.
History.
Exactly, and it's like Grandma wouldn't be here if that man didn't know how to cut timber with this axe.
Yeah.
And you're right, we've lost that as a society.
I bet he also knew how to carve a new handle when one broke, and
Yep.
I bet he could wet that thing down where he could do heart surgery with it.
So
There's other skills, yeah.
she tells a story. They were tight on food one time, and he got a contract to go cut all the timber on this lot. And he told all of his guys, he said, instead of usually you're going to make a road in and start working from the inside back, right? He said, we're going to start on the outside, we're going to cut all the timber on the outside, and then just keep working in rings. Until they got down, there was one oak tree left in the center of the property with 200 squirrels in it. And then Daddy went out there with a slingshot and knocked every one of them out of the tree with a slingshot and came home with a brace of squirrels. She said, we ate squirrel for a month.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the questions that you asked was, how should people learn the skills, right? How do they learn what we do? I think the four of us, from what I'm gathering, maybe we were a little bit spoiled because we grew up hunting and fishing and things like that, and maybe we take some of those skills for granted. Because it just was like I might have mentioned that I'm self-taught, but I'm specifically speaking like survival skills and things like that. I'm not self-taught. Yeah, I'm not self-taught when it comes to marksmanship there, or because I grew up shooting. My dad handed me my first .22 when I was a wee lad. Before I can even remember, I learned how to skin squirrels and all that kind of stuff and catch fish. And a lot of people maybe watching this video didn't grow up doing that stuff.
Inner city, you don't do that if you're in
You have
Detroit.
no concept of that,
Yeah.
You have people that have never walked barefoot on the grass,
Mhm.
and I just
knows my mind.
I don't.
Yeah. So maybe I don't know. You guys can let me know what you think, but I think the four of us might take some of that for granted. Now that I'm thinking about it,
I tell my children all the time. I look into their eyes and I tell them, I have won the lottery of life. I have won the lottery of life. Having you for a child, for one, and then secondly, I sleep in a warm bed. I eat food. I drink clean water.
what is it?
Like when it comes to our mindset, I think we need to make a shift, because it seems not just in the preparedness realm, but as a country, we can't see past Friday in the ball game. Like we're too short-sighted, right? The question I have in my mind, in my heart right now, what are my great-grandchildren going to eat?
Amen.
That's why I'm planting orchards. That's why I'm doing things that long after all memories of me are dead in that valley, there'll be stuff there people and animals will eat. And that's my legacy. I'm going to leave that behind.
It is the beginning of wisdom to plant a tree whose fruit you will never eat. Rashi, I believe, said that.
And all this talk of preparedness and bug outs and bags and walking and doing this long movement thing, that's not real. You're not doing that. You're not doing that, especially with your kids in tow and sustaining them.
Bugging out
It's
with
not
the family
happening.
is not really a thing.
It's not-
We tried it. I did it on my channel. It does not work.
You can't go very far.
And my youngest was like 2 at the time. I'm like, well, we're making about a mile an hour, right? Yeah.
Not very productive.
Yeah.
I did a good run on the AT in August with my kids, with 2 of my kids. They had 30-pound rucks, 30 pounds each. Mine was 30 pounds, and we did a 100-mile section, and that was good. Because 100 miles is a good movement, you know. Yeah, that was 10 and 11 years old. So
How many days?
that's 7 days.
Yeah.
In mountainous terrain.
That's respectable.
It was high, and I told them, I said, "There's grown men could not do what you guys did," and I made them hitchhike home. They're like, "Let's call Nana." I'm like, "No, let's don't. Let's hitchhike."
Yep.
That's another skill. Like we talked about that. So you got to go out and do it to get. But we planned for that. You know, we had, and I generally will have a lot of in cold weather. I'll have rations, but even in the summer, you know, it's all in how you just living in the field. Basic skills that, like you say, we probably take for granted. You know, you've got to know how to live in the field.
But that is temporary.
Yeah, that's temporary.
Yeah.
That's you're in a bad way, and you're trying to get somewhere that's nice.
Short-term survival versus long-term survival.
Long-term survival is agriculture.
food.
It's like,
Agreed.
Producing what you need to eat.
yep.
Yeah. Pastor Joe says the moment you slid that first Mylar sack, you started a ticking time bomb.
Yep.
And you got to have a way to replace those calories, right? I'm all about food storage.
Yep.
I think everybody should have food storage, but all that's doing is buying me time until our next growing
That's
season.
And that storage should be the food that you're currently eating so that it gets cycled.
Yeah, imagine that.
Yeah.
Margin for error. That's what I tell my kids. And in preparedness, you need margin for error.
Yep.
And that's something as a country we don't do well anymore.
Oh no, just in time logistics.
You scan the widget as it's being purchased, and the computer says, "Send us one more of those."
Just one more.
You know, it used to be they'd have pallets of stuff in the back, and it's like, "Hey, y'all got any more of those for sewer baby peas?" They're like, "Oh yeah, we got a pallet. How many you want?"
Yep.
Now it's not like that.
Yep.
It's like
If it's not on the shelf, they don't have it.
it's not.
Yeah.
More efficient and less resilient.
Yep. That's it.
Okay, I'm Tyler White. I grew up on a ranch as well. What you just basically said is my childhood for the first half of my life. And I remember that same situation. I had a lot of farmers and ranchers, cowboys that I wanted knowledge from. And it wasn't like they could just answer your question, 1 + 1 is 42.
Right.
Right? It was more like, here's how to sharpen a knife. Now you do it and get the feel. It was like how to play an instrument. And all the skill sets that I wanted to learn that we had were the feel, the experience, how to make leather, how to sew things, how to hear what's wrong with the engine and fix it. So I had ranching experience. I had military experience when I was 17. I ended up going into law enforcement. I worked state, federal. I kind of repeat a lot of that stuff, but you should get a lot of information from something quick right there. And I lived in a lot of places, and I feel like I have become a jack of all trades, master of none. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. I feel like I've got a lot of exposure in a lot of different environments. And I logically, I know this isn't true, but I feel like I'm not good at any of that, if that makes sense. And that keeps me hungry to find knowledge. And part of my search led me, I watched Dual Survival. I watched Alone. I know a few guys from there, right? And I always have to ask, how did you learn that? Right? Because it's not like you're going to pick this stuff in school. Right? And I know where I got my ranching skills. I got it from the ranch. But it's not like I can just go to a class and pick up wild edibles in my specific geographic location. And when I got hungry for that, I went looking for the people that taught these type of people so that I can go learn from that guy or girl, right? And I found in my area people like Dave Holliday, right? Deep well of knowledge. I found people that are on some shows. You don't just get onto those shows because you know nothing. and I would learn from them. But then one of the first questions I would ask them was, who taught you that? How can I call that person? And I think that there's some value in that. And I structured a majority of the content on my channel is revolved around, who are you? How did you learn that? How can I learn that? So I'm just going to leave it at that. I think if you can find the people that you look up to, or that are smarter than you in any discipline, figure out who taught them, and find a way that you can learn from them and the people that taught them, you're better off.
Yeah. Be willing to admit that you don't know.
Oh, I definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially right here. Thanks for watching. My name's Tyler White. I'm not funny. So hit the subscribe button. If you have questions, we'll try to answer them down below. Thanks for watching.